following podcast contains spoilers and words that my mother would prefer I did not say. We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. You've got Billy as always, and this week I'm so lucky to have with me this awesome podcasting friend. It's been a while since we've done anything together. I think the last time we spoke was in one of our movie mass debates with a couple of other podcasters. It's the legendary Dudi Dutram from Shaken Not Nerd and Shaken Not Noob. How you doing, mate?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, it's been a hot minute since we talked. I think we debated, what was it, The Last Jedi, whether it was a good film or not.
Yes, we did, yes.
And it is not a good film. That film, I think, turned like 6 years old, I think, the other day or something like that.
Wow.
And people were celebrating it. And I'm like, more importantly, Rogue One turned 5 years old, and that's a far superior film.
Rogue One is a fantastic movie, actually. It's definitely the best of the new Star Warses.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. But it's so interesting. It goes to show that like Bill Burr's ex-Stormtrooper is a TV series character, and he's a spin-off like little small character, and he has more plot and character development than Finn over 3 movies.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, they did Finn so dirty by the last one.
Oh man. Yeah, no wonder John Boyega's pissed.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about Star Wars this week. This week we're here to talk about arguably the biggest release of this year, SpiderMan No Way Home. Were you super excited for this one, Dudi?
Yeah, I was, because there was 1,001 rumors going around, stuff like that. Like, you know, even when Far From Home came out, you know, a couple of years ago, there were all these rumors swirling around that, you know, we were going to have Matt Murdock as a defendant defending Spider-Man in court, that someone was going to hire the Punisher to kill Spider-Man, and that was going to introduce it, like bring in John Bernthal. We had all these rumors swirling around, and then leaked photos and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm seeing all these leaks and everything. I'm like, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to have the mentality of most films when I go in. I'm just going to sit and watch and then just let it happen. And yeah, it is basically the only good thing that has come out of this Marvel phase has been 2 Spider-Man films. Because basically everything else is shit.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest MCU fan, as a lot of listeners know. I tend to enjoy them enough. I thought Endgame was pretty bad, to be honest. I'm on that side of the fence.
It got into a bit stupidity with like time traveling backwards. I'm like, dude, just go into different universes and get those universes.
Exactly, yeah. But this movie, I only saw the trailer for the first time about 2 weeks ago, and it was the first time I've been excited for an MCU movie in forever, I reckon. I don't know what it was. It just got me so pumped because, especially probably similar to you know, like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans were a part of my childhood. Like, you know, we were around that age. I think I was maybe 13 or 14 or something when the first one came out. And that was like the first, you know, really good superhero movie in a long time. And yeah, it was so much, you know, obviously this show has spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, maybe head away and then come back once you've seen it. Because, you know, there might be some spoilers going on here, but man, I was so looking forward to this movie.
Yeah, like you said as well, man. I grew up with the Tobey Maguire ones. Like it was not the first, but it was one of the earlier films I remember seeing as a kid. I didn't overly go to the cinema a lot, but I went with my old man who knew nothing of, you know, Spider-Man shoots webs, and every now and then he'd be like, "Who's this guy?" And I'm like, "That's Green Goblin. He's a bad guy." And he's like, "All right, cool, carry on." So yeah, it was pretty cool as well, because I will say what Marvel or what the MCU's done quite well is it's introduced me to characters that, you know, I read comics, but I don't, you know, I'm like, yeah, I know who Doctor Strange is. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
And now it's like, actually, Doctor Strange is this really cool character that's been introduced to me through the films, and now I've read some of his books, and I'm like, you know what? I think he's one of my like top 5 Marvel characters.
Yep.
And it's this film's it starts off a little buddy copy-ish with Doctor Strange. And I'm like, I'm all for it. This is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my favorite thing the MCU has done is that it is literally basically a video comic run at this point. Like there's retcons, there's all these, it's almost like when you read comics, and I'm sure you know this being the Shaken Not Nerd guy, you know, there's always like, oh, okay, cool, so this arc goes through 5 different comic series. So even comics that I don't usually read, if I'm interested in this arc, I now have to go get that issue to follow this story properly.
Yeah, it is frustrating. Like, if I picked up a book called Secret Invasion, and I'm like, sweet, that's got to be, Bucky Barnes is Captain America, and it's going to be him doing his shit. And like, he's in it for like 2 panels, and the rest of it just follows, other characters. I'm like, no, I want to read Bucky Barnes. Yeah. Like, oh, well, you need to read his tie-in books and Captain America 456 to whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Yeah. But it does have a little bit of that. There are some head-scratching moments in this film that just don't sort of, I don't get it. And there was one point in the movie I've just gone, fuck off.
Well, let's get right into it then. So Spider-Man No Way Home is a 2021 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Spider-Man, co-produced by Columbia Pictures and Marvel Studios. It's the sequel to, let's face it, Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, and 2. And it's the 27th film in the MCU. It's directed by Jon Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Erik Sommers, and it stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jacob Batalon, Jon Favreau, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Benedict Wong, Marisa Tomei. And what is it about, Dudi?
Well, look, it is basically the end of Far From Home. With Jake Gyllenhaal, Mysterio's death, he sort of fakes that, Spider-Man has killed him and he's, destroying things, and he reveals that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And then from that, everyone knows who Spider-Man is. He's getting hounded at school. It's affecting his relationships with his friends outside of school because, they're basically trying to get into college, and them knowing and affiliating with Spider-Man is affecting that. So he goes to Doctor Strange and just says, look, can you make it that people forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man? And Doctor Strange is sort of, they've set up in this film, he is not the Sorcerer Supreme, which I thought was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But that they've set up that, he is going to set up a spell to make everyone forget, and Peter starts interrupting the spell, and it basically brings in visitors from other universes who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and that's how we get Dr. Octopus, we get Electro, we get Lizard, we get Sandman, we get all these other villains who have known that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It's pretty cool, I won't lie.
I gotta say, it was... So I saw this last night. I think you saw it the night before, opening night, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it on opening night.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but it was amazing. Obviously, we had lockdown here for a while. You're in Melbourne, so I know you've been in lockdown on and off for ages.
For about 2 years.
Yeah. This was the first time, I reckon, even before COVID, I reckon this was the first time in about 3 years or so that I've been in a cinema with this kind of vibe. It was a completely packed out screening, people cheering at certain moments. Yeah. I love that atmosphere. I love, a slow indie burn as much as the next guy, but there is nothing to me like being in a packed cinema with a giant popcorn and having people cheer at the screen. It was so much fun.
Yeah, we had a little bit of that in our one. Maybe a month ago now, we went to, my wife and I went to a preview early screening of Ghostbusters, and they had the Melbourne Ghostbusters core there. Yeah. So they're all dressed up with proton packs. They had projections of Ghostbusters all over the wall. That was just basically one of our first things of coming out of lockdown is going to an early screening of Ghostbusters. It'll be a bunch of nerds in the room. Okay, cool. And it was they're pumping music and they've got proton packs on, and they made a whole big thing of it. I'm like, this is fucking cool. Because we had a little tiny break coming out of lockdown last year.
Yeah.
And Ian and I went to go see Monster Hunter, and we just went, I wish we were back home. I wish we were stuck inside, because that fucking sucked. Oh man, no, yeah, that wasn't good. But yeah, now the atmosphere inside the cinema was there was cheering. There was one dude who fell asleep, someone brought his dad or something along, and he just started snoring fairly loud, and it was during some some comedical moments in the sort of the end of the second act, start of the third act, and you could just hear coming from the corner of the cinema, and people just losing their shit. It was pretty good, man.
Let me ask you this: as much fun as I had with this film, and I did have a lot of fun, I personally couldn't help but feel that, isn't this kind of just a rip-off of Into the Spider-Verse not executed quite as well?
It feels like, Into the Spider-Verse came out and a lot of people loved it. That's all I'll say on that. And, and look, Sony wanted to, from my understanding or something like that, I think Tom Holland Sony and Marvel's partnership was ending because at the end of Far From Home, and Tom Holland was probably, let's try and do our own version of it using the old Spider-Man, and I think that was a great idea. I think this is executed better than Into the Spider-Verse.
You do? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this more so, not only because it doesn't break fucking stupid comic book rules, but like it's bringing us back characters and the actors who are from the previous iterations. But not only that, but it pokes fun at itself.
Yeah, that's true. Yes,
there's you know a little dialogue between the Lizard and Electro in the film where it's like Dr. Kirk Connors was a brilliant scientist and he turned himself into a lizard, and Lizard fires back going like, didn't you have a comb over and a big gap between your teeth? And it's just like, this is fucking great. And like they make fun that he falls into a vat of electric eels, and they make fun that Sandman falls into a fucking collider and stuff. And it's like, people falling into things is the greatest supervillain.
Yeah. I agree. For me, I don't know that I think this is necessarily executed better, but I think that you're right in that it definitely had an easier job to do, given that it is working with existing properties. And you're right, getting the original actors back, there was no other way to do it. Like, that is the only way to do it. And even little touches, like the score by Michael Giacchino in this film is brilliant, but when he touches on those older, James Horner scores and stuff,
so
like
good.
It just like, even if you're not super familiar with the original properties, if you've at least seen them, there's just something amazing when stuff like that happens, when it just all ties together like that. And the production design of, seeing those original
suits,
villain costumes, and exactly.
It's something that, like, and you can see it from the trailer when Dr. Octopus sort of appears on the bridge and, tentacles are coming through the floor, and you hear that Dr. Octopus theme from Spider-Man 2 playing, and it shot chills up my spine. Like, this is fucking beautiful. And, and it just flips on the complete, like, this works really well by throwing in scores of the original sort of films and adding a little touch to make it your own. Where you look at like Danny Elfman's score for when he did Justice League, and it's just like, well, he's just doing 89 Batman and the Todd Williams score, but he's not incorporating it and weaving it into his own thing. He's just flat copying it, and it just doesn't work. Where here it works really well, to the point where like it's reminding you and giving you member-berries of the old films, but also changing it enough to make it its own sort of vibe and theme, sort of like what Michael Giacchino did for Star Wars Rogue One. Going back to that, like, it feels like Star Wars, but this is a new theme that you haven't heard before. This is the Imperial Suite, but it sounds like the Imperial March, but it's completely different. And
definitely.
It was awesome. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about the acting in the film, because you're right, getting those original actors back, Willem Dafoe, watching him chew the scenery in this film, there's something magic about it. Like, he's just so like, the performances across the board, I think, are excellent. Where are you on Holland as Spider-Man?
Look, I really enjoy Holland. I used to say he's the best Spider-Man.
Right.
I do sort of think so as well, because I like what we've seen with Holland, because he was first introduced in Civil War. He is a kid. He is 16-ish sort of kid. The end, through at the start of this film, like, they're trying to get into college or university or whatever you want to call it. So they're basically in like their late teens, maybe going into their 20s sort of ish. And it establishes that like we're seeing them grow. Where Tobey Maguire's like, they're in university. And he's supposed to be young 20s, but it seems like middle 25, getting near 30. And then Andrew Garfield just felt like a hipster nerd with a skateboard and a big quaff going around a high school. I would say it goes Holland and then Maguire pretty close, because Maguire nails some of those socially awkward aspects that I think only he can do. But Andrew, it's sort of like Batman. Like, there's a Bruce Wayne and then there's a Batman. Like, they're two separate things. Tom Holland does good for both. But Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, especially, sort of, you watch the two Spider-Man films, and he's a smartass. Like, he's dodging punches and swinging back in, and he's just like, continuing on with his quip. Where Tobey Maguire is socially awkward. He's funny in that regard, but he's not as quippy as the rest. Where like there's a good amalgamation between the two of them and Tom Holland.
I agree. I think that he really balances between those two roles, and you're exactly right. That's the way I always thought of it, was that Tobey Maguire for me was a great Peter Parker and not as great a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And yeah, Andrew Garfield went way too far the other way, and I don't. You're right. The big quaff and riding a skateboard. It just wasn't Peter Parker to me. Like I know they were trying to modernize it, but yeah, I think that Tom Holland has really nailed that kind of amalgamation of both of those. Zendaya for me was best on ground. I thought she was brilliant in this film. Like in the little bit, like she's not a huge player really, but I found myself really, really caring about her in this film.
Yeah, and I was actually quite surprised because with the previous Spider-Man films, they're basically like, they're in danger or, they're basically pushed to the side where, watching the trailer gives you the hint that, Doctor Strange just told Spider-Man, Mary Jane and Ned, like, go fix this shit.
Yeah.
And they set out and they do it. They don't just, take a backseat going, oh, yeah, cool, whatever. And I'll, Mary Jane and Zendaya it's not Jesus Christ, I've forgotten the name. The actor who plays Kirsten
Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not like, damsel in distress and all that sort of stuff like that. Like she's out there doing stuff. And Ned's character development in this film, I think it's fucking great. Where it's we can actually get a bit more from him with how his character's done.
Yeah.
Without overly, or like we'll get to it later, but there is a scene in this film that just felt so fucking good that just had Mary Jane and Spider-Man in it, where I was just like, that got me right in the feels, and my wife's like, I don't get it. I'm like, I'll tell you after the film.
Well, I mean, should we start getting into some more like spoiler territory?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
All right. Worst kept secret anywhere that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this film. I think everybody knew that, and everybody knows that now. When I was reading the cast list at the top of the film, they're listed there. So it's not a great kept secret anymore. But I mean, I was not expecting them to be in it as much as they were. Like for the final third of this film, probably even more, closer to kind of half of the film, they're quite main players, and that really took me by surprise.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I was expecting something like, Spider-Man's in trouble, he's getting attacked by all these people, and then one of them just comes in and saves him, and everyone goes, but like the way that they set it up was, Ned's, talking to Doctor Strange that he feels tingles in his fingers and shit, and Doctor Strange is like, go see a physician. But it's actually like, they trap Doctor Strange inside the mirror dimension, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And they take his sling ring, and that's like a big rule from the Doctor Strange film is like, don't be caught without your sling ring. Yeah. And Ned like wears it, and he just like says, I wish we could see Peter, and the portal starts to open up, and Andrew Garfield runs through, and just thinking, you're sitting there going like, oh, okay, cool. Like you're going to get a second or two of this, and then, we're going to find what, and it's like, no, there's this entire thing where like Andrew Garfield has to prove that he's Spider-Man. So he's like hanging from the ceiling and then like, they're like, oh, can you, get the cobweb out of there? And then they say the same thing. I wish we could see Peter, and we just see Tobey Maguire walk through it, but he walks through it in that awkward Tobey Maguire fashion, like he looks down at his feet, and then he's like, I'm sorry, I just walked through this, and then the portal's gone. He's like, right. And then there's just like a fucking cowboy shoot-off between two Spider-Men shooting web at each other, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It was fucking cool as, man. But like, the thing I just found a little weird, and it's not a negative, it's just weird. Yeah. They obviously de-aged Dr. Octopus. They de-aged Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, yep.
They didn't do it for Tobey Maguire. And it's just like, okay, are they pulling... They're obviously pulling the villains from different universes, but at different times?
Yeah, they are. And they kind of explain that, obviously, because the villains get killed, I guess. So they're coming back at earlier points. But yeah, the Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield talks about losing Gwen. And so, yeah, it's obvious that, I guess, I don't know how much later. Like, is it it is a bit weird when you look at it that way.
It's they talk to Electro, and it's like before Electro disappears, she's like, I had Spider-Man by the throat, and I was pulling energy from a grid, and I'm like, okay, so he was probably the end fight. And when we see Electro, I did like a an eye roll but a laugh at the same time, because when Electro first shoots lightning, there's that dubstep sound that happens in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm like, oh, fuck. And it never happens again, but it's just like, remember, he had dubstep every time he used lightning. Like, that's right. But there was some really cool characters that I just, like, I knew that were going to be in the film, but I just didn't expect their character development to,
same. Yeah.
When Spider-Man's like, he finds Electro, Sandman comes out of the ground. He's like, hey, it's Flint Marko. Remember me? And Tom Holland's like, no. And it's like, yeah, he was a hero, like, at the very, very end of Spider-Man 3. Well, not even a hero. He reformed, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's trying to act like a good guy. And then Flint sees, Spider-Man and Electro fight, and he's like, you're not my Spider-Man, and starts to turn from that. And yeah, it was cool, but just like, there's the moment in the film where, and it harkens back to the first Spider-Man film, where Green Goblin's thing is, we attack someone's heart. That's his motto. And spoilers, but fucking Aunt May gets whacked.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking rough scene, man.
Yeah.
Like, sitting there watching it, and it's, Spider-Man's fucking angry and he's pissed, and he's got that sort of rage that Tobey Maguire had when Uncle Ben died.
Yep.
And having the two other Spider-Mans, come in and they have this emotional scene where both of them are like breaking at the seams, talking about Uncle Ben and talking about Gwen. I'm just sitting there going, this is fucking awesome. Like, it's an emotional driven scene, but it's so good for comic book fans, for a Spider-Man fan, because it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I agree. I wasn't expecting that either. I didn't expect Aunt May to die. And the chemistry between these three Spider-Men is, as they help each other, and all those little callback. I love when Tobey Maguire is talking to Andrew Garfield. It's like, come on, you're amazing, man. Like, you're amazing. Like, he keeps saying it.
He's like, the amazing Spider-Man. That was, the difference.
Yeah.
But there's like, what, maybe 4 minutes or so of them just talking shit, like, waiting for the bad guys to show up. And it's like, I fought a black alien goo thing. And Tom Holland's like, I fought a big purple alien and went to space. And they're both like, what? It's like, this guy went to space. He's like, I'm shit. I fought a lizard guy and a lightning man. And they're like, no, you don't suck. He's like, yeah, I suck. It was freaking hilarious, man. Like, they're getting ready, and Tobey Maguire is stretching his back out. And it's just like, oh, you're right. It's like, oh, yeah, my back. And I'm like, that's the scene where he fucking falls and lands on the car on his back and fucks his back. Like, this is awesome. Yeah. I'm loving this.
Yeah. Yeah, so much fun.
So good.
Yeah. And I agree. Yeah, they didn't need to... Like, let's face it. They could have just made this a fan service film. Audiences would have been happy seeing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield for 5 minutes. But instead, you're right, they really use these characters and this whole multiverse to actually further develop characters in this one, which is just so brilliant. And the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing. Like, when that comes up, as a fan of Spider-Man and of, those original movies, that was just amazing when Aunt May said that, and then later on when they say it together.
Yeah.
Just great.
It develops Tom Holland's character more. It sort of develops Doctor Strange a bit more as a character as well in some regards. But it also goes, like, there's just beautiful... It's like, you look at another movie that is just flat fan service with no development, no nothing. It's just memorabilia. It's like Episode 7 Star Wars. Like, hey, just remember all these characters. We're here. It's like, remember all these characters, but we're also developing a story. We're having a character who, Tom Holland Spider-Man, who has never gone up against the villainous Green Goblin. Like, when he's like, oh, I've got the Goblin at bay, or I don't know what's going on. I'm just, fucking Norman Osborn. I'm sitting there going, dude, don't fucking trust that guy. Don't fucking trust him.
Yeah. Well, and that, I love where this story goes, that, you expect this, and it's fun. It could almost be over pretty quickly. Like, he captures all 4 of these villains almost immediately. But then, because of the kind of person he is, his whole thing is, we can help them. We can cure these people of their kind of villainess, like, before sending them back, so that they... And it's it's a really cool way to go about it. I think that then is where the rest of the movie goes, is him trying to help these people.
Yeah, it is. How do I put this delicately? I enjoyed that. We're seeing that this Spider-Man, compared to other Spider-Mans, who's just, I'll try to save them. They're not listening. Let's just fuck them up. And with this film, like, I just don't get how they're pulled from different times, but I do like that. They set up in the trailer that Dr. Octopus fights Spider-Man, and then his tentacles start going red, and it's like, oh shit, he's getting a bit of nanotechnology. Oh, he's gonna be like a fucking an evolved version of Charizard. And then it's like, well, no, because the nanotechnology is inside his tentacles. Spider-Man can now just fucking turn them off.
Yeah,
and it's just like, wow, that's a really great plot twist. It's like, wow, this film isn't actually going in the direction you necessarily think it is.
Yeah.
And just having sort of, they're using the fabricator from the previous film that made his suit to create cures or fix things that are necessarily wrong with him. And even just the small thing of like Spider-Man's suit gets covered in paint, so he has to turn it inside out. And that's how we get black and gold, because it's all the electronics inside the suit.
Yeah.
I like that sort of aspect of it. But like, as soon as shit starts going wrong and fights start breaking out, like in that sort of middle of the second act, end of the second act, seeing Green Goblin just fucking ho shit. Like, the entire audience was just going, I don't think Tobey Maguire would have survived a knock like that. Like, he's literally doing a stone cold stunner to him and puts him through like, 6 or 7 stories of a building, and you're just like,
yeah.
Fuck. The biggest question I have with this film is they set up that, everyone who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, people who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, has been pulled into this universe.
Yep. I think I know where you're going. Yep.
Yeah. I didn't watch Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage because I knew it would be bad, because the first one is bad.
Yeah.
So I just went online and just looked at the end credit scene, where Tom Hardy's Venom is pulled into the universe, and it doesn't seem like he's pulled into the universe similar to how these characters, Dr. Octopus and stuff, might have been pulled into the universe.
Yeah.
And we have an end credit scene of Tom Hardy trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this unit. He's talking to a bartender in Hawaii, and he's like, yeah, there was Avengers, and there's purple stones, and rah, 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 rah. And then he disappears like the heroes, or like the other characters in the film, like they turn into like a golden ghost and then just dissipate away when the universe is being reset. I'm sitting there going, hang on. Tom Hardy doesn't have a Spider-Man in his universe, I don't think.
Yeah.
Nor does he know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So if he's in this universe, the way he traveled in seems weird, right? Seems weird and different, which is, it's fine. Like, you can have it a different way, but then he disappears in the same fashion that, everyone else disappears.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there going, okay, that doesn't make sense. And there's a bit of symbiote like left on the bar top, and I'm sitting there going, okay, well, there's your symbiote. It seems like a bit of a ham-fisted way to introduce a symbiote, where it's like, Tom Holland went to fucking space.
Yeah.
The symbiote's alien, we could have had it introduced from there.
Yeah.
And it just felt off. Like, I'm sitting there going, like, if this movie is fucking awesome, but if something like that is just ham-fisted thrown in, it just feels like, okay, you've written this awesome story, you've tied it all together, but this end credit thing that gets people excited, just, I don't get it.
I agree, because I think it's a really weird move, to be honest, because so I did watch Let There Be Carnage the other week. I knew it wasn't going to be good, but I was like, why not? It's short. I'll give it that. It's like less than an hour and a half.
Jesus.
And yeah, the end credit scene happens, and at that point, you don't know why people are sucked into this universe, because, you don't know that because you haven't seen this film.
Yeah.
So I was expecting Venom to be in it more.
Well, yeah, there's only 5 villains in this film, and it's like, okay, well, there is the Sinister Six. Like, that's a big deal for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's only 5 of them. So I'm sitting there like halfway through this film being like, all right, we need one more.
Yeah.
And we have the Sinister Six. I'm like, maybe they're going to use Venom.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, they also have the Vulture in prison as well as Scorpion. Like, Scorpion sure hasn't really done anything. Yeah. But like, we still have those 2 villains. So maybe we're going to get them. Maybe we're going to get a hologram AI projection of Mysterio. And then we have the Sinister Six. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't do anything with it.
No. And I find it a really weird way. Like you say, there's a million ways that they could have gotten the symbiote into this universe. And it just seems strange because it's clear that whatever form the symbiote takes in this new timeline with Tom Holland, it's not going to be Tom Hardy because he's gone back to his universe. So to me, if you're not using Tom Hardy, why have him come across at all? Like, there was so many ways they could have introduced.
Well, yeah, that's what I was like, because from that end credit scene in Venom 2, like, it's like the room like just shakes and vibrates, and then he's in, like, it's not him teleporting or whatever, but it seems like the room around him or whatever is, or the universe is shaking around him. And the only thing that I could think of is the villain for Thor: Let There Be Thunder is a character called Gore in the comic books. Gore is a character known as the God Butcher. He kills gods. He hates gods, so he just goes around the universe and killing them. And he has a symbiote, basically, as his weapon. And that symbiote is from a character called Null, the god of symbiotes.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, okay, well, maybe they're introducing the symbiote so they can give us Null, because Null is like is a pseudo-Thanos-y style character. And I'm sitting there like, okay, cool, maybe that's how Venom gets pulled in, or something like that. But it's just like, I don't get it. But maybe also we're getting a different. I wouldn't mind seeing a different Eddie Brock. That could be cool because I don't like Tom Hardy. We get the proper Carnage. So yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, that's cool. But if we're getting a different Eddie Brock anyway, why have Tom Hardy come across here in a storyline that doesn't make sense just to drop a piece of symbiote? Like, if it's, I didn't get it. It is a strange move. I don't know if maybe it's just part of the agreement between Sony and Marvel that they had to somehow have him appear in this film. Yeah,
and maybe as well, like, it's also a way to have and not have Tom Hardy in the universe, because Tom Hardy, not only is he Eddie Brock, but he voices the Venom sort of symbiote as well.
Oh, that's true. So maybe he'll still do that voice of that symbiote in this universe, even though that's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't overly know too much in regards to Black Suit Spider-Man from the books, but I don't know if he had a symbiotic voice with his black suit. I think it was just sort of the black suit, and then it went on to Venom, and then sort of started to become its own thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure in that regards, but like, would we have Tom Holland Spider-Man getting the Venom symbiote and have the Tom Hardy sort of voices and stuff like that with it as well? I've no idea.
Yeah.
But it could be a cool little play thing to add into it. I will say the ending of this film and the sort of the last couple scenes has me excited for what they're going to do next.
Yeah, same. And it gave me much more of an emotional punch than I thought it would. I think you're right. Having Ned and Zendaya do more than just be in distress, having them really be a part of his team and actually actively doing things, and showing that Ned has, some kind of wizard-like abilities as well. And then now they don't know who he is. I don't think I would have gotten, like, them forgetting who Peter Parker is. I don't think I would have had the same feeling from that had they not been bigger players in this film. And so I think it was a really good move. And I'm curious, like, Happy doesn't know who he is. So what happens with the Avengers now? I'm guessing that, like, they don't even know who he is. So I'm curious to see where they go next in this phase now.
Yeah, I was sitting there like, the whole ending of it is, It has those like purple cracks in the sky, and I'm like, all right, well, this is tying in with the Loki TV series where purple cracks started appearing everywhere. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, Doctor Strange isn't going to be able to stop that. That's that's Loki's doing. And then I'm like, well, no, that's part of this fucking spell. This is okay. All right. Well, then the whole thing was like, if everyone forgets who Peter Parker is, it cancels out the spell. I'm like, all right, cool. But people don't forget Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, Spider-Man is, and the people still know Spider-Man. And I'm like, okay, well, I was sitting there like, okay, well, the Avengers will know that Spider-Man helped them and he was there, but people won't know who Spider-Man is, which like is kind of cool, because in the comic books, in the Civil War event, Spider-Man reveals himself to be Peter Parker in a press conference. And for everyone to forget, he said he gets Doctor Strange to wipe everyone's mind. So I kind of like that, but it's also like a decent enough way that should, at the time, Sony and Marvel sort of not get along, it's like, well, everyone has forgotten about Peter Parker, but it's like, well, people haven't actually forgotten about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And the spell only works, I think, for people on Earth.
Yeah,
and
right.
we know Nick Fury's off planet.
Yeah. Yeah, so, cool. Yeah. So all in all, how are you scoring No Way Home?
I'm probably going to go like roughly around an 8.5.
Yep.
The absolute best thing for me, or at least for me being a fucking nerd, is, you know, everyone finds out that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, everyone's like, oh, and then we fucking see Matt Murdock representing him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes! And I'm sitting there going, this is fucking cool as. And someone throws a brick through the window and he just grabs it. And Tom Holland's like, how did you do that? And he's just like, I'm a really good lawyer.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy shit, yes, we're not only getting this, like, I'm praying to whatever God that is out there, that we do get Punisher, you know, we get John Bernthal's Punisher back in, that we get Kristen Ritter's Jessica Jones back in. As much as people didn't like him, I want... is it Finn Jones and Luke Cage to come back in, because I think a Heroes for Hire series, and a Disney Plus series, would be fucking awesome. Yeah, because that one episode in Luke Cage is great. And I'm just sitting there like, awesome. This is great, because I was sitting there in the end of the film. I'm sitting there going, we're having this big fight out. We're having 3 Spider-Men, seeing them all dive off and do a dive bomb from the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, and they're all like, woo! I'm like, this is great. Like, it would be fucking cool if Daredevil comes in somewhere. Yeah. That would be kind of cool. I had a lot of fun with this film. It was a lot of member berries, but creating on its own merit from that. Yeah. I like that we got Dr. Octopus sort of evil. They changed the chip over in the back of his head, and then he's like, oh my God, I'm back to normal. Yeah. That we're getting Flint Marko as, you know, a giant Sandman. And like, he turns back into normal when he gets cured. Yeah. And... yeah, seeing Electro with an arc reactor being like the power in this thing is awesome. And he's actually getting the lightning bolt like outline around his face, like the mask. Yep. I'm like, this is cool as shit. Like, he doesn't look like Mr. Freeze anymore. This is cool. But man, it goes to show that you can have oh shit, I've forgotten the actor's name. The guy who plays Thanos, Josh Brolin?
Josh Brolin, yeah.
Yeah, you can have him be in as many Marvel movies as you want. He can be the big bad guy and snap away half the universe, but he does not hold a candle to Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin.
I agree. Willem Dafoe, he eats this movie up. He is fucking great. He's so good.
Yeah, it's just like there's the one scene in the film where Spider-Man knows something's wrong. His spider sense is going off, but he doesn't know where it's coming from. And he's standing around all the villains and he just shoots web at Green Goblin's hand, and he's just like, you. And then you just see that like that Cheshire grin Joker smile just come out of him, and I'm just sitting there like, oh man, I've missed this. Yeah. It was awesome. Having sort of as well all the other Spider-Man sort of talk about their losses, and you know, Ned going up to Tobey Maguire like, did you have a best friend? He's like, yeah, he tried to kill me. He died in my arms, and then he just freaks out from it. It was a really cool film. I think that this has done Spider-Verse well better than Into the Spider-Verse, because Into the Spider-Verse had to introduce new versions of Spider-Man that we've never seen or met before, and broke comic book rules. But this film is like, it's giving you the old ones that you like. It's giving them a last handing of the torch, if you will, because there is a scene where he's like, thank you, and he hugs both Spider-Mans, because it's like, without those two, you wouldn't have had Tom Holland. And it shows like you're getting quippy Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, who's just awesome. You're getting socially awkward Tobey Maguire, who, you know, is making fun that he's fighting Sandman again, then he's getting sand in his suit and all that sort of stuff. And we're getting massive character development from Tom Holland. And it was really, really cool. I think roughly around that like 8.5-ish. The Tom Hardy thing didn't make sense sort of to me. I was sitting there scratching my head. The end credits was basically a trailer for Doctor Strange. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'm down for this, until the very end of the trailer. I'm like, oh, fuck off. I literally said that at the cinema. Like, everyone's like, yeah, and I went, fuck off. I enjoy this. I think the last thing is, it seems like this movie was it is a member berries, and it is done right. It's not like Star Wars films. Yeah. But it also feels like the first to sort of, you know, let's jump the gun. Let's be the first person to do remember the, you know, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, because next year we're getting Michael Keaton back as Batman, and that's going to have the same effect.
Definitely.
And look, Warner Brothers, I don't know what they've been doing, sitting on their hands, being like, yeah, we're going to do Flashpoint at some point.
Yeah.
And like they even make a little jab to it with Flash Thompson being like, read my book, Flashpoint. I'm like, they're throwing a couple little jabs at Warner Brothers. I'm like, all right, well, fair enough. But it's also the first person to get the old school character to come back to cameo or be an actor. Yeah. But I had a lot of fun with this. I'll probably see it again.
Yep.
It's been one of the better films I've seen this year, but it's also like, when you look at the MCU timeline past Endgame, it's like we had Spider-Man, then for a long while nothing happened, and then we had Spider-Man again.
Yeah.
So
I'm a 7 out of 10. I agree. I had so much fun with this movie. I love all those little throwbacks, the way they tie it all together. And like you were saying with the Matt Murdock thing, the best thing about that is the way that it's so understated. I don't even think they refer to him as Matt Murdock. At one point they call him Matt, but up until that point, it's Tom Holland, it's Tobey Maguire, it's Spider-Man saying, thank you, Mr. Murdoch, and it's Marisa Tomei saying, thank you, Matt. Like, it's just that, but it's like, the way they introduce it as well, like, it's just a shot inside the living room, and then we just see the cane slap down, and then I've just gone, oh, yeah. And everyone else in the cinema was like, what? And then the camera pans around, and you see the red glasses and stuff, and everyone's just fucking lost their shit. Yeah. And I'm just like, This is fantastic. This is great. Yeah.
I'm loving this. This is proper like world building.
Yeah.
We had bloody J. Jonah Jameson as well.
Yes.
Like I just keep spacing on fucking actor's name. But J.K. Simmons.
Yes.
As basically J. Jonah Jameson, but like you see at the start of the film, like he's obviously like in a fucking basement with a green screen.
Yeah.
And because he's like leaked all this news and he's become he's in a studio.
Social media.
He's it was fucking hilarious. And it's awesome. I'm really enjoying it. I'm probably gonna watch it again. I think it's a great send-off, but it's also a great way to watch this film, go back and watch all of the other films again, and then come back to it as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, man. Can you tell everybody where they can find all of the cool things that you do across, YouTube and podcasts and all that stuff?
Yeah, so Shaken Not Nerd, of course, the podcast we've been going for, a while now, 6 or 7 years. Shaken Not Nerd and Shaken Not Noob are on the same podcasting channel. It's movies for nerd. It's video games for noob. Other than that, I do a YouTube channel. It's just called Dudi. It's Dudi, and it's just video games. That's all it is. I talk about. I do a video every week, and it's must play some old games and some new games, and I go back to that interesting Avengers game that came out last year and review all those new DLC characters. And I do a little bit of Twitch stuff, but I normally don't promote Twitch because Twitch, I'm not a streamer. But this coming Tuesday is the last race in our virtual Formula One season. And because I've won the championship, I'm doing a shoey live on stream.
Nice.
So yeah, that's going to be a bit of fun.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, man. This was so much fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Film with you. This Thursday, Topher and I will be dropping our Christmas special. It's day before Christmas Eve, so we'll be talking Die Hard 2. Which will be fun. And
it's not a bad film. It's all right.
It's not bad. Yeah. And next week, all going well, I'll be joined by David Rosen from Piecing It Together Pod talking about the new Matrix film. So looking forward to that.
That looks interesting.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm not a massive Matrix fan. Are you?
It's all right. Like every time the Matrix is brought up on the podcast, everyone turns to me because when I was a kid and they were making those films, they were filmed in Sydney and they used my mum's warehouse to film the movies.
That's cool.
And I remember asking my mum, like, oh, can you get an autograph for Keanu Reeves for me? She goes, what do I want an autograph of that ugly fuck for? I was like, And it's like, this is the only film they haven't, obviously haven't used my mum's warehouse. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I can stop fucking saying that because everyone looks at me like, say the line, Bart.
All right, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and I'll catch you next week.